Okay, as I presume you are aware, today is your deadline day for the first design project, Project 2 overall. So in trying to think what I should present today, I think some of you are still struggling with some of the basics of Quark. And so I'm going to go ahead and kind of split the difference. I'm going to do a demonstration project of the Tabloid project, which is the next project. But we'll certainly be re-demonstrating the techniques and so forth of how to use Quark. And so you'll be looking ahead a little bit. I'll be talking a little bit more about the next project, but the techniques will be the same techniques and strategies that we use in all the projects, basically. So that's the plan today. So I'm going to start from scratch with a Tabloid project. So I'll hit Project, Create Project. And in this case, I'm going to now resize it. Trying to see what they, okay, so we need a new size. And this one I'll call Tabloid. The Tabloid is 1117. That's what at least we're going to call it for this assignment, which means it's actually a little bit bigger than half the size of the broadsheet that we chose. As I think I mentioned before, broadsheets can be a variety of different sizes. They're more of a, I mean, they're big, but even big, it depends on the paper you buy. The newspaper buys different size paper from the different paper mills, and so their broadsheet can be different sizes, and thus their tabloid it can be a different size. Some of them will buy more than one different size of broadsheet and more than one different size of tabloid. So if you, maybe I should back up just a second. That very few newspapers can afford their own press. Even back when I first started in the industry decades ago, already my predecessor, who I bought the newspaper from, had stopped doing his own printing and started driving more than 100 miles round trip to have somebody else do the printing. The presses are just too expensive for, at least if you're going to do use a modern press that has a higher quality, plus can do it faster anyway. So even though it took him a while to drive there and back, and he had to wait for them to set it up, so as I did. So I'd go grab some lunch or whatever and come back a few hours later to pick up the newspaper. But anyway, even the daily newspaper that I used to work for had a multi-million-dollar press, and once it started to break down, they decided they weren't going to print anymore. Looking ahead into the future, where printing is going to disappear, they send their PDF made, in their case, with Quark. They use Quark. They send their PDF to another city, again 100 miles away or so in their case, and that newspaper has a newer press, a better press, and they made them a good deal. So basically they send it by PDF, and then the other newspaper drives it down by truck to them, delivers it to them, and they don't run their press anymore. And that's a newspaper that has, I don't know what it has now, but it's probably down to about 40,000 circulation, but that's not a bad circulation. And they don't bother to run their own press, a daily newspaper. So certainly weekly newspapers, and as I've mentioned in class, weekly newspapers far outnumber daily newspapers in America. That used to be 10 to 1, about 10,000 weekly newspapers and 1,000 daily newspapers. It's probably shrunk in both cases, but I don't have the new numbers. But again, there certainly would be still more weeklies than there are dailies, and so the weeklies, unless they have the only press in a large area, they're not going to be printing their own newspaper. And that may be the case, by the way. I worked for a newspaper in Arkansas that was quite isolated, and they had their own press. They might still have their own press if they serve all of that of North Arkansas and southern Missouri. They might have it, but basically you don't do it for yourself anymore. If you're going to have a big press, you're going to be making money off of other people. You're going to be selling your services to other people. And of course, in this day and age with the internet, as I said, you can just send your newspaper to whoever is going to print it, send it to them by PDF, and then show up to pick it up or arrange for them to deliver it, whatever the case might be. Okay, so anyway, my point is that possibly this neighboring newspaper that the daily that I used to work for, maybe they have several different sizes of broadsheet and several different sizes of tabloid. But typically when I would go to a new newspaper or a new printer, the last project I shifted, I think ultimately went to 3 different printers over that period of time. And each time I had to change the size of my newspaper. 1117 is a fairly typical tabloid size, but there are lots of other sizes, and I've shown you copies of my bilingual newspaper, and that was nowhere close to 1117. I think that was more like 12 inches high rather than 17 inches high, so big difference. So the concept is a tabloid is half size of the broadsheet, but the broadsheet can vary in size, therefore the tabloid can vary in size depending on what the printer wants to buy and stock in his warehouse. Be sure you have at least this ½ inch all the way around. It's impossible for a press to print a newspaper without at least a ½ inch on, not necessarily, well, basically on all sides of it. So be sure you have adequate margin on all sides. Where the tabloid is, of course, narrower, 11 inches wide, we will go to a four column format as our standard. Again, you can monkey with that a little bit, but I urge you not to do anything too crazy. As I mentioned before, but some people kind of broke the rule, maybe not hearing me. There's some cases where you might go to a different size. In fact, there is a newspaper that sets up, their standard is to set up in a 12-column format. I think they're a broadsheet. But they don't intend on having any column only one, any story only 1 column wide. Their intention is to always have a story at least 2 columns wide. But just in order to have more options, they've set it up for the 12-column grid. And then some of their stories go 3 columns in a 3 out of the 12, some go 2 out of the 12. And it's, I used to do that with some of my publications. It was, and of course you can change back and forth. You can set up a 12-column grid and then go back to 6 column. And so it's, the grids are purely to help you set up the publication you want. But my point is that you may have in a 6-column grid, you may have a 2-column story once in a while, but not more than 1 on a page. Very frequently, there's a lot of digest run that is like real short stories. Many times, some of those are from press releases. They don't want to give them a full story, but they include some meeting or something they decide, yeah, that's news, we should run that. And so they get a big press release and they run 2 paragraphs maybe for that press release. And so a reporter might be assigned to write a digest, a news digest of all the press releases they've gotten in. And so digests particularly are very frequently 2 columns wide. And once in a while, I myself like to, especially if I'm going to box a story and it has a good sized photo, I might go 2 columns, but that probably I wouldn't do it if it was a total of 4 columns wide or 6 columns wide. I probably wouldn't go to a 2 column format. But if it's only 2 columns straight down one line, that's not overdoing it. And nice picture, box the whole thing. It looks nice. But I do see sometimes students getting into trouble by trying to have too many different sizes, and they think it's cool. But if it's if you try to use too many different sizes, it starts looking a little bit crazy. So I don't encourage it, especially for students who are just getting started. So this would be what the tabloid would look like. Again, this is a large tabloid, and the broadsheet that I use, the size of the broadsheet is actually a fairly small broadsheet. So this isn't really quite half the size of the other one. This is a little more than half. Nonetheless, I think you'll have enough stories and photos to fill 2 pages. Since I'm having you already go to, over from 1 page to 2 pages, you should have enough to fill 2 tabloid pages, which in theory are half the size of a broadsheet. Today I probably won't get that far because I'll be talking about it and as I go along. I'm going to go ahead and use, just the same as you are, I'm going to use the same stories I had before, but I'm not going to bother to look at headlines and stuff. I'll redo headlines for this assignment, but you can start with the same headlines. They're not going to fit, so you have to redo your headlines anyway. But at least if you start with your current headlines, it gives you a starting point, and you can make some adaptations as you go along. Hopefully you've done a pretty good job of editing your stories. You're familiar with them, so this next assignment should go somewhat faster than your previous assignment. You're more familiar with the techniques and the tools and so forth, so that should be helpful. I'm going to go ahead and reopen my my Excel spreadsheet. I recommended to you that you go ahead and help yourself out by having an Excel spreadsheet that tells you. In fact, I helped you create it. It gives you the information you need so you can think about it. In this project, I've decided, at least until I get to page 2, to focus on 5 stories that are that includes one a little different, the speed story, the motorcycle story you may have noticed, but I didn't use last time. I'm going to put that on page 1 instead of the football story. So Titans is not going to be on my front page just because I'm making an arbitrary decision so I want mine to be a little bit different than the other one. But it is very arbitrary. If I was thinking this through, the rationale I used for not choosing speed was that it had a fairly peripheral sort of relationship to the university, has fans. There's a racetrack. Well, it's actually a racetrack sometimes, and it's a ice skating rink other times, but there's a racetrack not far from the university, far in the sense of maybe 10 miles or something. And so, there are students that are fans of the occasional races that are there. But that's it's not like, I don't think there's anything in the story that suggests that one of the students is racing in it or anything like that. So but nonetheless, I'm going to kind of ignore the newsworthiness question in this case, just to have something that looks a little different. So in looking at the stories, I'm going to, like I say, leave the top one off and add the bottom one. And And so I'm looking at the size. The one I'm leaving off is the longest story. It was 27 inches. It had some good photos, but this one has a couple of good photos too. So that's one reason why I feel comfortable replacing it. With your tabloid, I actually don't think I've said on the critique sheet how many stories I want you to do on the front page. I think we'll go with 4 stories in the front of broadsheet. 3 will be too easy for you. I want it to be a little bit of a challenge in how to design it. So, of course, we had 5. I wanted you to use 5 in the front of the broadsheet, so we'll go to 4 with the tabloid. It'll be a little tighter. You won't be able to fit all of as much of those 4 stories in the tabloid probably, even though this is more than half the size of the broadsheet that we used. Okay, so going back over to Quark. I haven't designed this out ahead of time or anything, but I know that the best photos are with the speed story. Just going back to the stories, I take a gander at those, a look at those, and I see I've got here a pretty good close-up of one of the racers. Here's the start of the race, but here they're going around the turn. These are kind of smaller images. I'm tempted to go with the big image, but making that real big, I don't know, I'm not sure. But I'm not in love with the other one, so I might go ahead and make this a big image. I've got the parking story. Those photos are not great. They're okay. I didn't use much with the Nautis. Is there a celebration for spring in all the Turkish-influenced countries in Central Asia? And we used, I believe we cropped down quite a bit the Nautis number 2. I guess that's over number down number 4 is the smaller version of it. The other ones are pretty far away. They're possibles, but I still think that's the best photo, but maybe I can use the larger version of it. We still have the hiking picture, or the hiking stories, and I still like the background of the mountains but at that one, again, you don't have a real big human image in the middle of it, so it's questionable about, unless you make it quite large at the top of the page, that's not going to be a good photo. So that's probably the first question I have to deal with. Do I put the hiking story, which again, if I'm thinking in terms of what's newsworthy to my students, that is more related to the university, but I got to make that picture quite big. The other photos, besides the one with the mountain background, are not that not that good of pictures. They're not. If I go with that one, then like I say, it's going to be very big. The others are going to have to be small. The other photos, like the one with the bigger image, the racer, will have to be a lot smaller, not to dominate the page. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and use the hiking story at the top of the page because it is just making that news judgment. Basing on that, and it is a pretty photo, and if I make it large enough, I think I can dominate the page well enough with that. So I'm going to start off, and this lectern here is kind of odd to work with because it's, I don't know, maybe I don't know. They have a piece of glass here that's kind of in the way, but okay, then maybe that works a little better. Give myself a little more room. Okay, so I'm going to, of course, I'm going to kind of lay out this thing ahead of time and figure out what I want to do. I need a fairly good size headline at the top, so I'm going to leave quite a bit of space. I'm going to adapt it later. I will go ahead and put in the text box Again, it doesn't let me get real close to the headline, but I can adapt it after I draw it. But I need that photo, in order to dominate, I need it to be quite large, so I'm going to have to come down something all the way down here if I'm going to use that, or I'm going to have to go 3 column. That might be better in order to get 4 stories in here, so I'm going to have to adapt that headline. Probably something like this. Yeah, something in there. So I will go adapt the headline now. So this will be 2 columns, a 2-column headline. And so I might even need a little more space than that. So I'm going to bring down the storage just a little bit. And because I want this to be probably, if it's going to be 2 line, I mean, not 2 column, 2 line, probably actually, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to bring this down. I prefer to put the photo at the top in this layout, I think. But then, how do I put the headline? I really don't want the photo to go 3 columns. Then it's going to have to go even a lot deeper. So if I make this, if I put the box around it, I can use, I can go ahead and make a 1-column headline, or go back to maybe more of a hammerhead. So leave room for a good size headline, but it'll be a hammerhead. And I will put the photo in columns 2 and 3, and I'll put my subheadline in that first column. But I'm going to have to, if I'm going to put this then into a box, I need to bring in, get it away, get the text boxes away from the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and bring over, drag one of these green lines, a ruler guide over, so that my boxes will snap to that. And so I can line stuff up, so I'll bring the box over, text box, same also with the headline box, bring that over. And I'll have to come down too a little bit. It can be something like that. Then I will go ahead and have a text box come all the way down. Again, we get close to that column and it doesn't want to cooperate. I'm probably just going to come down and match the bottom of the be a little bit. The text in this text box should match not the text of the one in the box, but the box itself. So the bottom of the box will match the bottom text line of text in the adjoining text box. This is trying to jump all the way over to the green line. It says sometimes you'd have to blow it up in order to get it to control these lines without turning off the snap altogether. And so I'll just blow it up to this size, and so now it should cooperate. I can get it to go where I want it to go when I'm blown into 100%. I just couldn't do it out at the control 0 size. So I'll make that one next to, even out here. So if I'm going to get 4 stories in. Now, one thing I warned one of the students about is it doesn't look real good in your design to have a a gutter that goes all the way from top to bottom. So there's two possibilities here. It also, however, is not real good sometimes to have two-column stories next to each other. But there's a way of getting around that. There's several options here. One is to run a story all the way across, which if I run one, I need to run two of them all the way across. Because I only have 4 stories, unless I want to go with 5, but I don't really want to. So I can run these lower 2 stories, the headline all the way across, and avoid having to create another graphic box. That's the other. Let me talk about that a second, because I've talked to a lot of quite a few of the individuals during tutorials and talked to them about this. I want you to keep the style that I've been talking about. Every newspaper has its own style. And if every copy editor were to create their own style, it would look like a mess. You can't have one copy editor using one style and another using another. Now that's true that's why in the text we have AP style to try to guide it so that we all use the same language style. But it's also true with layout style. As I mentioned, the first daily newspaper that I worked at, we had an excellent design editor, and he's the one that convinced me that this idea of if you had 2 stories next to each other, one of them has to be boxed. Nowadays, you will notice that's not the norm. If you look at those 30 pages from the 30 newspapers in America, the 30 front pages that I copied onto Moodle, they don't go with that rule. They draw lines. Some of them have lines. I think it looks bizarre, personally. But if you're going to have a very simple rule like the one our design editor had, which is 2 stories next to each other, one has to be boxed, then that starts to, whatever style you have, it's going to control a little bit your design. You're going to start thinking, well, how do I adapt to this to avoid too many boxes on the page? In this case, you're not going to have more than 2, but do I even want 2 boxes? If I have 2 boxes, I definitely don't want 2 boxes on the same side of the page. So I wouldn't put 2 boxes, one around the main story and another one right under it to the left. There's no way I'm going to do that. I might put another box in the bottom half of the page to the right. So I have a box in the upper left and a box to the lower right. That'd look okay. There is the possibility of putting a box, just a 1-column story here, but then we have this gutter running top to bottom, and I try to avoid that. And so you start wrestling with how do I want this to look and what's the best. And as I mentioned, one option is simply to do the bottom 2 stories all the way, 4-column stories all the way across and not give them a lot of space. Maybe have one quite narrow with no art whatsoever, maybe in the middle. And then at the bottom, you have art in the lower story. So you have a big piece of art at the top. You have another piece of art maybe to the lower right. You're going to have to try to get some half-column photos or something to try to get that third element, to get your golden triangle, ideally. So you start wrestling with it. And your style, to some degree, is going to influence how you design. I admit that. But anyway, going back, you still have to have a style. If the official style is, as it was at that newspaper I was at, that you don't draw lines all over the place. You simply, if you had 2 stories next to each other, you box one of them. That's a very simple rule. And it reduces the number of lines you have on the page. I do not, as I said, I don't like what I see in most of the pages, those 30 pages, and there are lines every place. I don't like that personally. So even though it's somewhat, whatever style you use is somewhat handicapping, you have to think about it a little bit. So here I have the option, as I mentioned, of what I want to do at the bottom. I can put another box in the lower right. I can avoid it the whole thing by putting a very narrow, in the sense of deep, narrow story all the way across 4 columns in the middle, and then another one below that, but more space for a photo. The other option, well, I was going to say, in order to break up that column that goes all the way down, top to bottom, if I allow it to, I could do a 1-column story to the left, but then I have I'm going to have to box one of them, and I said I don't like a box right on, like having a box on the major story on the top and one right below it on the left, I think would look terrible. So it'd be better if I tried to do that if I boxed the 3-column story on the bottom. I don't really love that one either. So I think I'm going to go with the idea of running a 4-column story, a very narrow one, at the in the middle, and then leave room for a bigger one. Let's see, can we see the whole 4 columns? Not quite. I'm going to go ahead and use this magnifying tool. Well, I guess I can. Maybe I can if I move over. Tabloid, you can see a little bit more. So I'm going to drag it over so I can see 4 columns at the 100%, so I'll do that. So bring it up. I'm just holding down the Alt button here, which I can do while I have other tools turned on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this headline. Well, I haven't put in the graphic line yet. I'm going to have to leave some space for the graphic box above it. I should have put that in already. I didn't do it. I'm going to put a fairly small headline here because I'm going to have a fairly small story as well. Something like this with no art, probably. I'll have to decide which one I want no art with. So this one's going to be quite narrow. And then that leaves me enough room for a 2-column photo at least. Below that, a story with a 2-column photo. So I will put another. This one's going to be a larger headline, at least 36 at the bottom. And with a photo, I'll put in a photo in the lower right, at least 1 photo. This one might have more than 1 photo. We'll see how that works out. Okay, I've not drawn the box yet at the top. I have to do, well, I can probably at least start it, and then I will so I'm going to do a graphic box up here, put it right across, right on top of the, on the top margin, and push my way down. If I hit the bottom of the page, it'll kind of force its way down. So this one will go use the column grids. And I want it to be fairly close to the text box, but certainly not touching it. So I'll go with that size. Down in the text box down below, we need to, or in the graphic box, I need to hit the frame button down here, and I need to tell it how big I want it to be. Right now it's at 0. And so 0 means you can't see, there's no line. So you drew a graphic box, but you can't see it. So an invisible graphic box, which doesn't make any sense. So I need to change that. Very common in newspaper work is just a half point graphic box. That's probably the most common size for graphic boxes in newspapers. And so I'm going to go ahead and take last time I did a half column, I think, in the main box, and then I did a whole point one point on the second box I had on the front page of the broadsheet. I'll go with the half column here. And so my page is basically designed. I just need to start bringing in photos and stories. And need to make some adaptation here. I can go ahead and, now the graphic box is keeping me from getting to the text box. So I'm going to tell it to go back. So I'll do a right click and see if that lets me do that. And it's not, doesn't show me a send to back. I forget where it's at. I'll go maybe utilities, see if check that. And view. Don't see it there. Over to window. Okay, so I guess I let loose of the box. It didn't have the handle showing, so now that I right click and point at it, it's allowing me to send to back. So it'll get out of the way of the text boxes and stuff. It should, so I can go ahead and work with the text boxes and other stuff. So, you have these layers, and sometimes one layer gets on top of the other layer, so you need to send it backwards so that you can work with the top layer. So that was the case here. Once I drew that, I probably should have drawn the graphic box first. I did, I think last time in the broadsheet demonstration, I did draw that first. And that's probably what I should have done. But obviously just grabbing it and, like I say, for some reason it didn't show up on the right click the first time. I thought I had the box selected okay, but anyway, I had to send it back. Okay, so I wanted to, probably the next step here is to bring in the photo, because it's such a dominant photo on the page. I want to see what we're going to have here. So this is going to take up a good share of this second column probably. I'll draw it into here, and once I bring the photo in, we'll be able to have a better idea if I need that whole amount of space. So I will double click on that and go find my stuff here. Okay, so this is the one I had in mind, putting the hiking picture up at top, and hit open. And I'll go ahead and right click and tell it to scale the picture of the box first off to see how it fits. So it's not as long as I thought it might be unless I crop it. Which I might well do to make it a little bit longer, a little more dominant, and get the image inside a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch this out primarily. I'm going to do the top, because I think the bottom is about the right spot. And I'm going to stretch it out to fill that box. But in so doing, I'm basically cropping this part out of it. I'm cropping off some pretty mountains, but I want to get the image bigger, and I want the picture to be more dominant on the page. Next question, though, is whether I shorten it here or want to even make it more dominant. But then I'm cutting out more of the mountains. So I'm going to try right where it's at. So I'll go ahead and shorten up the picture box to match the bottom of that picture. and click away and crop that part of the photo out. However, the next part of the question is there's a lot of blue sky. I'm going to go to Control 0. So we still have that same question of cropping. It has some, well, this raises other questions too, whether I might be able to put a headline in there. Maybe the subheadline there instead of in the left column. So you take advantage of that blue, all that blue in the top there. That's an interesting idea. Maybe even doing away with the headline. Well, put the headline box, or basically put the photo, uncrop what I just did. Go ahead and leave the and actually make it bigger, but move it up into the headline area. Make the headline over the photo. I'm going to try that. See what it looks like. I'm going to take the graphic box over and up. Oops. Well, I guess that is what I want to do ultimately, but I need the graphic box up there as well. I'll take the graphic box all the way to the top. That obviously destroys my, unless I do something very radical and put some story on top of it also, but I don't think that works. Well, the other option is to, now that I have it, oops, I didn't want to do that. I can go ahead and grab the graphic box and bring it down so plan to crop a bunch of that out, but keep the main image wide. So now instead of it being deep, it's going to be wide, a wide picture instead of a deep picture. And something more like that. And bring this up. I'm going to move the text box out of the way here. Move this to the top. And put the headline under it. Now this isn't going to be as dominant though if I do this. So I'll probably use a second picture to increase the dominance in the top of the page. I still have that the watermelon picture, if you would. So I have some alternatives to work with. And go back to the original idea, having a hammerhead here and putting the subheadline in the one column to the left. So I'm going to shorten up the, I need room for the caption. I could put it up here, but actually I think captions at the top of the page look a little bit strange. If this can be lower in the page or lower in the photo, I can see it, not up here. That gets a little strange. I don't want to do that. Okay, so we're playing with this a little bit, and that's part of the puzzle I enjoy, is trying to figure out how to make something look, in a way that is pleasing and helps tell the story still. Okay, so I see the headline has, as I'm manipulating stuff, it's gotten too big. The whole text box has, excuse me, it needs to come over to the green line, get away from the graphic line. Guess the whole thing moved over a little bit. Headline needs to come to the green line on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the story. And so Control E in the keyboard or up into File. Go ahead and select it all. I did not bring over the style, so I'm going to create the style from scratch too, because I want to re-demonstrate that. I want to take off the style. The very first thing I want to do, though, is take off the style that currently exists, get rid of it, of any of the influence from Word. Hopefully that did it. So I'm also then going to have to go through and change. I want it to be 10 point, and I want it to be Times New Roman. I want the indent. I'm going to go over to the paragraph attributes, and let's see, this is the first line indent. So that one in inches is 0.13. The critique sheet tells you what it should be in mm's and cm's, approximately. They put in some false spaces here, so I have to get rid of those by hand. There's nothing I can do about that except delete them by hand. They screwed it up. But I also need it to be get rid of the big spacing. I believe that's back under text again. Where are we at there? No, that's not that. Maybe it is back into paragraph. That would be, oh, here it is, 120. Well, that doesn't make any sense. It's obviously more than 120. So I would say, despite my effort to get rid of that double spacing, I didn't. You see what I'm doing again here. So, because that should not be, the leading should be 110, 120, but it's bringing in something from Word. Clearly, that is controlling that. In my effort to get rid of it, I failed. And I don't think these are made by hand. I didn't have this trouble last time. That makes no sense. I'm going to go in and look at modify and see what I can see there. And see if there's something that doesn't look right here. Don't see anything there. I am going to go ahead and modify the in the frame itself. No, it isn't. Where are we? I want it to be 2 columns and over 3. So this is again making it look a little different. As long as it looks okay, I'm going to go ahead and change the leading the way I was doing it. And bring it down here, but that should not be the way it should be done. But that's about right. So basically it's 20% over 100. And so it's same difference. So we've got that, but I'm probably going to bring in a second photo in here and push this out of the way because I need the art at the top to be more dominant. So one reason why I made it 2 over 3 is that I want the watermelon girl to be in here and be bigger than 1 column. So she'll be 1.5 columns. I'm going to go back then to the photo and the graphic box and bring in watermelon girl. And again, right-click it and tell it to scale the picture to box. And we'll just make the box smaller. I think I'll go ahead and leave her at 100% and just, oops, yeah. Over here, I forgot to, besides getting rid of the extras spaces that the author put in, I want to make this into a style, paragraph style. So I'm going to go ahead and select one so that it knows what I want a body text style to be. So I'm going to go ahead and add body text. I do it in the paragraph rather than the character because I want the indent added and the spacing and so forth. So I'll go ahead and hit that. And I'm going to take the first one here and I'm going to go ahead and first off take off the indent. So I'm going to go to right click it here and go up to modify, do it up here, and Okay, what I'm going to do here. Well, I guess I'm going to, it's not showing up there. Hang on. I'll do it down here. I'm going to go ahead and take off the indent altogether. And I'm going to click on the drop cap. That causes a problem. We need a third line to make that look decent, or I need that drop cap to be a lot smaller, which you can do. But, because right here, see it says 1 over 2 lines. Let me go down to see how that looks. So I'll use a smaller drop cap. I guess that's okay. I guess I'll go with that. And this I'll just use for the author of that is Domita, so I'll just copy that out. I'll replace Mountain Lover with her name. And I want that to be italics. Go down and make that italics. It's already bold. I want to also take off that indent, because that makes it, if I'm going to center something, you have to take off the indent so that it doesn't make it more to the right than it should be. So it should center over the whole line, the whole distance. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new style over here for that also. And that'll be my byline style. And I'll hit OK. I didn't, once I make the top story with a 2-line drop cap, I should probably do that for all of them on that page, not have a bigger drop cap someplace else. So I'm going to go ahead and save that as a new style. But I might, for future purposes, call it 2-line so I can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so I have some new styles over here. I need also to put in a text box here for the and it's resisting, so I'm going to start the text box out here, and I'm just going to put something in there just to hold the place, and then I'll drag it over and put it here under the photo. And get the right size. And in this case, I need to go down and do the do the run around. And over here, when you do the run around, you need to change this to item. And so we're doing a run around on this item, which is a text box. And I'll leave enough space so that I can do that. Oops, what did I just undo? While I'm at, I don't know her name, but I think she's probably the one in the end of the story, so I'm going to go ahead and create another text box here now. And just in order to put over, put the link here, so I'll link this box to this box, and I'll be able to see the rest of the story, as I suggested before, and get her name. Okay, apparently her name started on the front page. I I guess. So I'll go back over there now that I... Okay, SL. Again, I've got the text box below fighting me getting into this caption text box. I could pull it out and drag it back in again, but I can also just get in here and make sure that it's at the front. So I'm going to tell it to make sure it's bring to front so that it shouldn't fight me. And zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing better. And I'm going to make this, make a caption, so I want the, I'm going to make the captions italic also, 10 point still, and I will add that as a caption style, so I don't have to do that again while I'm doing this. Maybe just make this caption box a little bigger to get make some air between it. But this is also where, in lining up and creating vertical justification, we can use that text box to adjust where this line ends up in comparison to that one. I think it looks pretty close right now. Just to double check, I can bring a guideline down from the ruler and put it right at the bottom of one of them and see how that, so it's not quite, it's actually a little too far if I'm going to use this as my method of vertical justification, so I can just adapt, change that box a little bit. Probably that'll be good enough. Okay, so still playing with the idea of using a little bit, maybe the hammerhead on the blue, and then actually making this the sub-headline under the photo. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to try, again, it's resisting here, so I'll go ahead and start the text box out here. So in this one, I'm going to make this probably about 60 point, see if that works. I'm going to try to go to Arial Black, see if that works. Go back out again. And put that in there. shrink the box. And then down here, so something to, I'm just going to use the Shift Control, hold those down, hit the period, which is the greater than sign in capital, and just go out gradually to see where it takes me. And I think that, yeah, it goes a little too, it jumps too far, and when I go that from between 24 and 36, it doesn't give me any choice there other than just to change it by hand. I think I can go to about 32 maybe, not quite. So try 30. Might even get to 31, so let me try 31. Okay. I see again the photo itself has meandered a little bit. You bring it over. I don't want to do that. Okay. So I don't need as much space as I had left it. So I'm going to bring this up. I think I'm, well, if I put the headline a little bit higher here. Actually here, a caption underneath that might not look bad now that there's a headline above it. By the way, I'm going to probably, let's see, that is 60 points. Over here in the text style, I'm going to put, just create a 60 point, I'm just going to say 60, that's nice and short, and create a 60 style. But I also don't want that black. I want to go to a different color, and probably not any of those colors. These basic colors, all colors are made up in the printing process. Their primary colors in printing is magenta, which is the reddish color, cyan, the bluish color, yellow, and black. None of those look real good by themselves, in my estimation, so I wouldn't use any of those. I create a new one, and probably here I'm looking for a darker blue, but not, you know, I certainly want something that can be seen through the other blue. So I'm gonna, looking like in this range, maybe that seems a little bit too much, maybe a little darker. I can go ahead and increase the black. K is for black, so I can increase the blackness of it, make it a little bit darker, darker. And actually even magenta darkens it up a little bit. But I think this is more or less what I'm looking for. Maybe just go a little darker in the black and hit OK. But under new color, I'll say dark blue. And hit OK and see how that looks. I think that will still stand out okay and remain compatible with the background blue, but not dominated by it. Okay, so we've got that. So the question was whether I wanted to make a caption up here. I'm not sure that's the same person, but I'm going to pretend that it is. But what more do I say than what I said here? Although I could change this one. This actually could be up at the top. And I could have this to do with her watermelon, although that's stating the obvious. I'm going to hit Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Where did I paste that? Is it right on top of it? I don't know what happened to it. Let me try that again. Control C to copy. Go down here and say paste. And drag that up. Again, I can kind of press against the ruler, press against the edge, and it moves itself up. Press over to the left, up again. So this serves kind of like a subheadline, but it isn't. It is a caption, but it's placed in such a way that it has almost the impact of a subheadline. And with the headline, I don't mind it being up above the main part of the photo. That I think is okay. I'm going to leave it black because I want it to be readable. And I'm not. I don't think we need an indent on a caption. I'm going to take the indent off. And the I go back here and edit the caption over here too and tell it to get rid of the indent permanently on the style. So it doesn't do that to me in the future, and so it changed down here automatically once I changed the style up here. Okay. So down here I need to say something else. And okay, so looking back at where we're at, this took a long time to do that, but I made new styles. This becomes the very center of, the key part of the page, obviously. And so the rest of the page can go fairly quickly. I already have a text box here. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control E. Well, I need to go back and decide where I'm going to put what for a second. So I need a picture down at in the lower right of the, for sure. And that would probably be speed, so speed will be at the lower right. Might even have two pictures in there, at least the one. And parking does not have great art. That can go on page, the art can go on page 2. Nariz, I can use that crop photo and make it one column pretty easily. Which then allows me, okay, so I'm going to do the nariz here. Or am I? Okay, I am. So I'll hit Control E and go find nariz. Control A in this box, tell it to, first off, tell it no style. Try to get rid of anything from Word and hit body text. Go to, click on, I'm going to put in a space here that I work with a headline. Choose the byline, hit byline. Click on the first paragraph, hit drop cap, click up here. Again, I'm going to have to create a new style for this. Headlines, of course, are sans serif, which would be Arial. I have a bold over next door, so I probably don't want it to be bold. I probably want it to be light face. I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift Control on the keyboard and greater than, period sign again, and start looking at what it might look like. As I go bigger, this is 24 point. I don't want to be smaller than that. If I hit here, I don't want, I'm just looking at right this, but I'm going to hit a Shift Enter to break celebration. I can put community above celebration. I'll hit Control X to pull that out. Put community above it, take off the 4. Put in a Shift Enter there. Shift Enter here. Nariz is the problem maker here. Now, first off, these headlines should be flush left, by the way. Some of you are also centering them to try to cheat on this, and no cheating. So I'm going to go, looks like I can go to 25 at least before I, while I'm thinking about what I'm going to do about that second line, maybe 26. Might even go 27, which would make a nice, good-sized headline for a one column at the top. But nariz. Nariz is actually the kind of the new year for I don't know, for that culture. I'm not even sure what to call the culture. It is throughout Central Asia. Ah, never mind. I have the answer to it anyway. I can go down here and put for Nautilus. So now I'm within the 3 characters, so that's fine. Back up at this. Now what I can put in that half column in up here. I'm not sure I need it because I already have all this art up here. And I'm afraid it might actually distract if I put a half column in here. I think I may have plenty at the top, and my bigger concern should be down below. Now I have some regrets that I didn't put Nautilus down here and put in a photo here, but not enough room. Okay, so I'm going to go down there. For the moment, I'm going to leave it. I might go back later. So this one is the not the speed one. This is the what is the other one? Okay, we have hiking. Oh, legend. That one also has a half. I could put in a half column mug there. I need to figure out how to do that. That's an interesting idea. Barely enough for a half column. And this is where I might, this is where I might wrestle a little bit with the columns. Well, for now, I'm not going to, I'll get the story in first. So I'll click in here, hit Control E. I'm going to go find the legend and open that up. Again, I'll click in here and I'll go ahead and tell it I want it to be 6 columns for now. So we can see them. I will tell it I don't, again, I want to get rid of the, get rid of the style and tell it to be body text. Get rid of this garbage. Byline. Oh, this is the headline, intended headline. For now, I'll just stick it up there, not because I'm going to use it. I might use part of it. I will click into the, I already told it to be body text, so I'm safe there. I can go up here and tell it to be drop cap. And I don't know what that's all about. Oh, I wasn't thinking. I told 6 columns. Obviously, this is a tabloid, so that'd be 4 columns. 4. And put in the headline. The intention of this one is to be quite small. I do need to get rid of the indent, the headline, and and this will be probably a 24 point. And again, it needs to be Times New Roman, Arial, excuse me. And I will go ahead and bring that up, see if that what that looks like as I go up bigger. Too far. So again, it doesn't fit just right, but I'll go to about 28. It looks like I can go all the way to 30 with that headline that I wrote. And actually, that's good. And maybe even 32. Nope, 31. Okay, again, looking up, I've got this as a small story. I need to shrink the size of the text box, and I can increase the size of the story text box. Go down. This one is going to be a much bigger headline and a photo in here. So the intent was to put the photo down here, a 2-column photo or thereabouts, down in the lower right. So I will do that first. So I'll go ahead and draw my picture box down here. Leave room for a caption under it. Double click on that. And right click, make it scale picture to box. Is here is whether I want to, what I want to do with this. I could put the byline to the right like I did once before, and there might be some advantage to that. Then lets me make it a little bit deeper, so I can go ahead and bring the picture box down and over and increase the size of the photo. It's already been fairly well cropped. It's not too tight. See a lot of dust and so forth. But I can crop off a little more at the bottom. And so the image in this can be even bigger. And however, this is probably that's probably, come to think about it, I need a little more space than that for a caption if I'm going to put it to the right of it. Well, I'm going to make the text, I think that would be okay. Push the image over to the left a little bit. And click outside. Bring the text box, bring that box just a little bit more. Now this is a case, however, where we talked about looking off the page. So I'm wrestling with this a little bit because the motorcyclist is looking off the page, but he is looking into a caption. Maybe that's okay, but I don't think so. So I want to get this guy to look the other direction. So I'm going to click on this and go to modify. I think it's under modify. and I want it to flip horizontally. So if any of you who are not paying attention want to know how to flip a photo, you can right-click it, go to Modify, and click Flip Horizontal, and Apply, and hit OK. And now he's going the other direction, which is not a serious infraction of the rules. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the story. Actually, I'm going to bring this whole text box over to here because there's no reason to have it over the photo and cause that extra conflict since the story will end right here, or well, at least jump right there. So I'm going to go into here and again hit Control E to bring in that story. Speed. And I will go in here and I need to, again, this says it has fonts that aren't in this system. I'll just tell it no style anyway and go to body text so it now has correct style. I will, again, get rid of this garbage, put in a byline, get rid of some more garbage. Again, start stylizing stuff. I'll make hers byline. Oh, I didn't mean to, okay, well, I could leave this 2 columns wide, but I don't really want to, so I'm going to go ahead and, I see I've made a mistake. This is going to the green line. It's not in a box, so I don't want it to be the green line. So all the text boxes here need to go out to the outer line. And anyway, I want this to, this text box to be 2 columns, be standard. So I'll go to the frame and I guess it's the text box and tell it 2 columns in that. We have our 2 columns. I'll click in here and tell this give me a 2 drop, or give me the drop cap. Go up in here. I see I also did up here also went to the green line instead of the outer line. So I need to adjust that slightly. And that could also mean I could make it another point larger actually. The headline that is. I'm going to try going up while I'm at it then to 32 point. I can. And I'm going to save that over in here as a 32 point. Okay. I didn't, what was this up here? That was 27 point. I guess I'll make one for that too. That's not a standard point size, but I will make a 27 point headline so I can quickly stylize headlines in the future. I need a text, or I need a headline in here. This I am going to want to be bold. So I'll click that bold. And it wasn't going to make it to the next higher size. I'm going to try 30. Doesn't make that. I'm going to take off. I already put Keem up, I think, in another headline, so I'm going to get rid of that one and just put students. I didn't put the S on at the end. I've not put in subheadline. Well, I didn't necessarily need one in one column. This one is too short for one, but I do need one in this story. So it looks like I can go to 32 on this. Not quite, 31. I'm going to take a look at the page again. See, I have a couple of mistakes to make up. I forgot to adjust it here, so I need this story to go up. I need this photo and caption to go up. I need this, need a little more space here. I'm going to bring up the text box a little bit. And also the graphic box, give a little more space to the headline below it. I need this graphic box to go up unless I want the subheadline to be 2 columns wide, which is okay. I think I will make a 2-column subheadline. Going to start out the edge to make it get it started. And take a look again at the text a little bit, since I didn't use the story last time. I don't remember the details, so I need to recalculate or figure out a headline. And the second paragraph has a pretty good Now the this photo needs to go upward also, but it also gives me a chance to make it bigger if I want to. So I might crop it even tighter. I'm going to get into the picture and make that image inside of that even bigger. And I need a caption over here. A little bit of white space around it. And go to caption. This is, there's sometimes you can increase the size for a caption, but, and especially when you use a different layout like this, it allows you a little bit of creativity on it. So I am going to go ahead and increase the size of it from 10 to 12, but I still might want to add some more words to it. And looking again for some content. In fact, I'm just going to steal some little bit of information, not all of it, but not the whole sentence, but some information there. Okay, with that longer headline, we'll just go back to the standard. I'll take off the style if I can. Okay, so I go back, took off the style, went back to the standard size, and I think with the longer headline that is standard size is okay. A little bit of white space there. With that, I'm still not real satisfied with this. I'm thinking about putting in a half column mug in here someplace to add just a little more, or putting in something up here maybe still in nariz. I think I will try a half column shot up there and maybe split the difference or come down below. I'm wrestling with where to put it. And maybe I could shift her over a little bit and so it doesn't seem so close to it. So I might shift that picture and let the story wrap around her. Over here then, I will get this guy in here. That is, I'm going to have to reshape that a little bit. Scale picture to box. In this case, I might go ahead and rescale the box to take a full column, and I will move that other picture away from it. And so I'm going to grab the young lady and her caption and move them both to the left. And let the columns, I'll have to if your words are too close, you need to know how to back off the words from your other selected content. And I may not be able to do them both at the same time, but I'll click into this one first. And where is it? Oops. Okay, click out of here. I need to get to the box, actually, rather than the picture. And oh, here's the runaround. Get to the runaround, and I want it to be pushed away to the right and to the left. And do the same thing with the caption box, and also push it to the right and to the left. The left is kind of taking care of itself, except I did not make this justified. So I forgot to change, I'm going to have to go in and change my styles. So body text, I need to edit that and tell it to justify. So not line left, but line justify. Hit OK. That changes that's one reason why you set styles, and now it changed all the stories simultaneously once I changed the style. I see over here again, because I went to justify, I need to back off the text a little more. On the left side, I think the right side's okay. And same with the, get the story text away from the graphic box also. So now that should have justified everything, but it did not justify things on the right side for some reason. I guess because I need to hit, well, let me go on that again. It should have, anything marked body text should have become justified. But these over here are not, did not justify. because there's no style for some reason. I'm going to go ahead and select all that, tell it to body text, and then go back in here. I thought I did that before, but I guess I didn't. I'll go back and redo my drop cap and redo my byline. Drop cap also should be told to justify along with everything else. That would look odd for it not to be. So justify the drop cap also. All the rest that were properly, they all look okay. You have an extra space here that some got left somehow. Anyway, I haven't done the jumps, but that's starting to come together. Some things one thing I want to do is I think I'm going to put in a shadow box in here, but we don't have time today. So it's something I may show you, and we're way past time. We need to get out of here. I'll maybe do that doing tutorial, show you how to do shadow boxes. So you need to leave. Thank you very much, and we'll anyway, see you in tutorial.